Welcome to Houston on Record. If you've ever sat in traffic on 610 wondering how this city runs it all, this podcast is probably for you. I'm Brian Eisen. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Houston, Texas. I spend my days in courtrooms, conference rooms, and on the phone with people trying to solve serious problems under real pressure. And over the years, I've noticed something. Houston doesn't slow down. Business doesn't stop. The law doesn't pause. But the most honest conversations in this city don't happen in public. They happen off the record. They happen after court, after meetings, after a long day when people finally stop performing and start talking honestly about how things really work. That's what Houston on Record is about. This is not just a legal podcast. Yes, the law is a big part of it. We're going to talk about criminal defense, DUIs, trials, constitutional rights, and how the justice system actually functions beyond headlines and TV shows. But this show is just as much about business and leadership in Houston. Entrepreneurs, firm owners, executives, operators, people who take risks for a living, people who make decisions that affect employees, families, and futures. We're going to talk about leadership, growth, failure, reputation, marketing, hiring, cash flow stress, the pressure of being responsible when there's no one above you to blame. Because law is a business, and business in Houston is not for the timid. Some episodes will feature lawyers, some will feature business leaders outside the legal world. Some will be serious and analytical. Some will be lighter. More stories, lessons learned the hard way, but every episode will be honest. Today, we're starting in familiar territory for me. I'm joined by three attorneys I respect and enjoy talking shop with. Cole Leonard, his twin brother, Mitch Leonard, and Hugh Brazier. All three practice criminal defense right here in Harris County. They try cases, they negotiate cases, they see the system from the inside every single day. And today, we're talking about a story out of Tennessee involving 41 DUI arrests tied to one trooper, with more than half of those cases involving drivers who were sober or under the legal limit. 41 arrests, multiple sober drivers, all dismissed. It's a headline, but it's also a window into bigger issues. Discretion, probable cause, systems, accountability, and the real cost of being caught in the gears of the system, even temporarily. That's the conversation today. Welcome to Houston on Record. Okay. Hey, fellas, before we jump into Tennessee, let's go around the table. A quick intro. How long you've been practicing, what you focus on, and what keeps you busy right now. So just talk about like years in practice, type of cases you handle, and then anything else you want to say. So let's start with,
Well, good to be here, Brian. Glad to be back on the show. I have been here about just 4 or 5 years now. Moved from New Mexico. I was a public pretender out there for a little bit. Then came on down here to Houston, where I do a little criminal defense and some personal injury on the side, and have an absolute blast. And there's no greater job on earth, period, in the end.
all right. What about you, Hugh?
Hey, welcome, guys. My name is Hugh Brazier. I'm from Houston. Been practicing a little over 10 years now. I do take a fair amount of court appointments, practice all kinds of criminal law, and started doing some personal injury. But yeah, I second Cole on that. It's a great job and a great career.
Mitch, what do you say, man?
Hey, Brian, longtime listener, first-time guest. I've been practicing for about a year and a half. I do mainly criminal defense as well as attorney ad litem work, and definitely open to any personal injury cases that come my way.
Awesome. And myself, I think y'all know too, I've been practicing criminal defense for the better part of 11 or 12 years, I guess. I've been a licensed attorney for a little over 20 years. Started out in civil, but I really enjoyed criminal, and I like like being in the courthouse, like getting my hands dirty, and that's something that I didn't really get to do in the civil world. A lot of cool people in our practice doing what we do, and it's never boring, right, fellas? So
No, it is not.
Amen.
why don't we get in the Tennessee story I was telling y'all about? We're talking about that. So let's just go ahead and go around. How does someone sober get arrested for DWI? What do you think, Cole?
Well, you get arrested for DWI sober driving through Montgomery County, Texas. That's one way. The other way is that you have police officers that unfortunately do not understand the law that they have sworn to protect. And then you have the officers that decide, hey, I'm keeping these streets safe. I'm going to err on the side of caution. And when you have those two variables, then you have an area like DWI where an officer can just smell an arrest and you can't jar the smell of alcohol. You can't jar the smell of weed, and you just have to take their word for it. And these officers know that. And so, when these officers only care more about arrests than convictions, then you're going to see a lot of people getting arrested for DWI that have not consumed anything. In fact, I've even taken a DWI trial to trial based off of NyQuil. So that was enough for the officer. It was for some NyQuil. So I think it's pretty easy to get a DWI
Did you go forward?
without any
Did you go
evidence.
forward on that one? On that DWI?
It ended up getting dismissed. We worked something out,
Oh,
but it
dang.
was yeah.
Did they hang on to it till the very end?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They held on to it, and then they learned about the NyQuil defense, and at some point they dismissed it.
Yeah.
Now, Brian,
Man,
you're talking about there was an article that was like something like 40 something people in Tennessee were arrested without any alcohol testing or even showing up in their system.
yeah, and it was all one state trooper, and I guess he got relieved or he resigned. I'm sure it's related, but like I think 8 people had no alcohol and no drugs in their system at all. And
Jeez.
the other 14 came back that were under the limit, all from the same officer. So, I mean, I feel like a lot of officers, like Cole said, will just kind of come in and be like, oh, we're going to err on the side of caution, let the system sort it out, which can still ruin somebody's life because you can't get stuff expunged, oftentimes for 2 years after the or until the statute of limitations runs, which is 2 years after the date of the arrest in Texas. So these people, even though they got their case dismissed, even if you get their case dismissed on day one, they're still walking around with this criminal charge. Let's say they're trying to get an apartment or look for a job or whatever. If the state doesn't agree to an expunction before the statute of limitations, which is common, these folks will be walking around with a DWI arrest. Imagine if you're like trying to pass your medical boards or, go to nursing school or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah,
And
and
you have
think
to
about
say,
it,
yeah, I got arrested for DWI. It got
oh yeah, no,
dismissed, but
think
look,
about here, like in Texas, we have a lot of oil type jobs, and so a lot of people are, required to drive for those. So even an arrest for that DWI, there that cuts off a whole line of work that they could, be employed by.
yeah, yeah. And I think some counties, and I know Harris isn't one of them, if you do pretrial intervention, which is like a guaranteed path to dismissal for these folks, they may agree to expunge it right away, but not Harris. Harris, I think the contract language says 2 years after you're done with PTI, even if you finish PTI. So someone who gets arrested today in February in 2026 might not be able to get it expunged till 2029, like 2 years after they're done with the program, because the program's a year. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure anybody listening will be like, well, these people were drunk, they were driving. They're lucky to get the case dismissed at all. And I think that's true for the most part, but there are some people who are just scared to take it to trial. Like, I had a guy recently with a really low BAC and bad facts, and I was really, I don't want to talk somebody into trial when they have a guaranteed dismissal because you never know what's going to happen with 6 people you never met before in that jury box. And he just didn't want to take the risk. But I was like, man, if this was a DWI second and we had to go to trial on it, it would have been a great case because it was not a good case for the state. And this particular prosecutor in this particular court in Harris County did not want to dismiss it. Even when we approached the judge, she was like, "What? Really?" No, she's not. This particular judge is not a judge that I would say is real defense friendly. But even she looked kind of perplexed that they weren't even dumping it. And I wanted our guy to go on it, but he, I'm not going to try and talk him out of it. And then, God forbid, we lose, and I'd feel pretty awful. Have some egg on my face too, and have an unhappy client who has a DWI conviction. But cases
Imagine
like
being
that,
one of these defense attorneys, because some of these defense attorneys might have pled out in Tennessee, might have pled these people out just based off the officer's,
Yeah.
offense report alone. And I bet you they just said, all right, let's just plea it. Let's just plea, even if they just had one drink, whatever. Um, yeah. And they pled to it. So good luck getting that expunged.
I've seen this particular article like 3 or 4 places. The one I sent y'all, it was like on some website called Boing Boing. I guess it's kind of like one of those news aggregators, kind of like, a Huffington Post or something. But like the headline was something like new law enforcement new trick, just arrest them all, and just see what sticks, kind of was the
Yeah.
implication. And that's kind of what it felt like for this guy. I'm not talking about here in Harris County necessarily, but I'm saying with this guy, it just seemed like he was like, I'm just going to arrest him. I'll just get my arrest, and they get convicted. They get convicted. If they don't, whatever, which is a terrible way to go about it.
I think the hardest thing to overcome in a DWI trial as a defense attorney is the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, which for those in the audience who might not know what that is, it's the involuntary jerking of the eye whenever you reach a certain level of intoxication. And the body cam never shows the eye, so it's
Never.
all up to the officer to say, yeah, I saw 6 clues, and I only needed 4 clues to arrest you for being intoxicated, but I still saw 6. The jury's going to believe the officer more likely than not.
But yeah. And then,
Even though
and
it's
then when
not
you
on the
ask
video.
the officer, how many inches did you see it move? It's like, oh, we're just talking millimeters, Mr. Lawyer. Where did you pull out your microscope? I didn't see you looking at that. How many millimeters was it jerking?
Always
Yes.
jumping to conclusions.
And I have a feeling that's how this officer got caught, is they were able to determine whose BAC was under the .08 and how many of those tests showed up with 6 out of 6 clues. That's got to be the way he really got busted. But another way for the officers, which is really easy, anybody who's overweight or elderly, the one leg stand. You only need 2 clues, and it's if you sway, if you hop, that's a decision to arrest you. If you put your foot down within that 30 seconds, and then you use your arms for balance, and then that's another reason to arrest you. It's just too easy to get a decision point based off of the one leg.
Yeah, and I mean, I will tell you, I'm 53 and I'm in decent shape. I don't run as much as I used to. Probably should lift a little more now that I'm getting older. But I will
You
say
look
that
great from here, Brian.
thanks. Um, but I underwent that whole NHTSA, the same certification test that they give the officers to get past the exact same format. Underwent the whole thing. I've handled a bunch of these, and I know how you're supposed to do it. I know how they grade you. I know what the correct way to perform is. And I have a hard time doing it today. Like if you asked me to do field sobriety test today, and I haven't had a drop to drink today, um, then I'd probably still fail. I don't know. I mean, I think you'd have to be like an athlete, maybe in your 20s, to
Yeah,
really ace it.
I think Brian, it'd be kind of cool on a future show if we can, let's do the field sobriety test. And then we can also do a thing where we have a couple of drinks and then do the field sobriety test and go from there. But like,
Yeah.
it would show the audience that it really is like it's the roadside Olympics. They're asking you to do things and they're looking for you to fail. It's not a very advantageous test to take.
How many times have y'all been in trial on a DWI when the DA will say, and you've given this test to, hundreds of people, and how many have you let go? And they're like, oh, plenty of people, I always let them go. I mean,
All of my family members I've let go.
I've never, I mean, I guess they exist because by the time they get to us, these people have already have a charge against them. I guess it's true. maybe these guys do field sobriety tests on the road and maybe they let some go, but I have never heard of
Yeah.
anybody who said, yeah, I did the field sobriety test and they let me go. I've
You
never
know what?
heard
They
that.
keep that filed and categorized in the same Dropbox where they put the smell of alcohol and the smell of marijuana that they claim they see. It's all over there. It's all over there. They're keeping track of it.
Yep, that's a good one too. I smell marijuana. I mean, how do you disprove that? I mean, let's say the guy,
Well,
maybe
well, well,
does
through their
smoke weed
training
on
and
a regular basis.
experience, right?
Oh.
Through their training and experience, but then you say, "Hey, officer, was that fresh marijuana or was it smoked marijuana?" I thought through your training and experience, you should have some experience with it, right?
Yeah. I I had a case just recently in a county that it's in Galveston County, I'll tell you. And eventually we got it dismissed, but the whole time she's like, I didn't have any drugs in my system. I didn't have any alcohol in my system. I didn't have anything to drink. No drugs, no drinking. This particular client was a medical professional and they wouldn't dismiss it. So they went ahead and sent first the drug came, the toxicology report came back, said no ethanol. All right, great. But they wouldn't dismiss it until they sent it off for drugs. And DPS was hemming and hawing, I guess, and didn't get us the tox report on the blood until I had the judge said, let's do a show cause hearing on the matter. So I did a show cause hearing and DPS was supposed to show. And then right before the show cause hearing, magically, they
What
got
do
the
you know?
tox report back. And right exactly what I said. No drugs, no ethanol.
Wow.
And this particular client she's a doctor. She's a doctor. And so she was having to deal with that.
Let me
So-
ask you, Brian, did the officer claim 6 out of 6 clues on the horizontal gaze nystagmus?
Every time, man. Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Absurd.
And like you
Because they
said,
copy and paste from all. They go back to their last DWI, Control C, Control V, replace names. I can't prove
have y'all ever seen a warrant where it's clearly copy and pasted and like maybe even have the wrong birth date on
Yeah.
there? Like the facts are clearly you can win on a motion to suppress like that, but Jesus. Anyway. But yeah, man, this guy out in Tennessee, 41 people, clearly innocent. They still got arrested. They still had to deal with it.
Now he
Yeah, I think
resigned, right?
Yeah, he resigned.
No pressure from the
Well-
police department on that one, huh?
Yeah. Maybe he's coming down to Montgomery County.
Well,
He'll be over here.
he's working security at Twin Peaks right now.
Seems like that'd be a little more fun of a job, yeah.
I suspect he's probably going to pick up another job with some law enforcement agency somewhere else. They don't usually completely find themselves out of the system. Maybe he's in a small town somewhere now. But, so what do y'all think? If this happened here, how would Harris County handle it? What do you think? Mitch, what do you think, man?
I think if that happened here, then if it was my client, I'd want that cop on the stand. At least if we can somehow get him on the stand to admit that, yeah, he's had several cases of his have been dismissed because they were not intoxicated. There's got to be some way we could get that on the record and impeach him with it.
You know what?
But
ALR hearing. You get him on the ALR hearing on the record. Boom.
If they show.
If
he shows, and he's probably not.
Ironically, I think the one agency who's probably the worst about it, and I'm not going to name them, but y'all know who it is probably the agency that kind of fudges the truth more than the rest of them. And they're the ones who usually show up at these hearings. I always tell clients, it's a win-win because one of two things is going to happen. Either we'll get some sworn testimony that will either lock it in for trial or maybe even lead to a suppression or, or their license the action to suspend their license gets dismissed. But I'd say definitely the majority of the time they're not even going to show up because it's like a free depot for us. So why would they want to come?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Absolutely.
I think one thing that I maybe like about some other counties that they don't do in Harris, because I know HPD doesn't do it, is a dash cam. HPD doesn't use dash cam. So the officer can
Isn't
say,
that
yeah, he was,
convenient, by the way?
yeah, he was
Fourth biggest
swerving, you know,
city, like they don't have dash cam?
and then the body cam, like y'all said, more often than not, I can't see HGN. I mean, you can't see their eyes.
And
And
there's
then
been there's so many arrests where people will do the HGN and then they refuse to do the walk and turn or the one leg stand. And so the officer's like, well, all right, I've already got it. I've already got my 6 clues, so I'll just arrest you anyways. The one leg stand and walk and turn are just extra stuff that we can use to support our case. But if that's the case, they should just stop at the HGN, period, if that's really how strongly they feel about it.
they all just love it at trial when they say, based on a totality of the circumstance.
Oh, God.
You know,
Oh, God.
that's so ambiguous and vague, and especially in counties, maybe not Harris, where I feel like jurors are a little more fair, where they're just
Yeah.
like, well, the police officer said it, so it's true.
Yeah. Totality of the
Based on a
circumstances is I'm fine with when it comes to, like, making an arrest, but when it comes to convicting somebody of a crime, totality of the circumstances is just saying we don't have any exact great evidence on this. But if you look at everything, it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, even though it's just a horse with an ID issue. Who knows? They always
when
use
you
those like slideshows in the thing, in their jury selection.
Yeah.
The prosecutor loses that show of a puzzle of a giraffe's head
Yeah.
missing, and it's
Oh,
like, well,
yes.
you know what? Oh, you say it's a giraffe, but if you watch enough cartoons these days with little kiddos, you know that it's not weird for a giraffe to have the head of a horse or the head of a
Well, I
frog or
always
something like that. I don't know.
Well, they're always missing a puzzle piece around the nose, and I'm always expecting like, well, if there's a puzzle piece there, it could be just like a lipstick lip, like a cartoon lipstick lip. We really don't know if it's a giraffe.
and y'all know Sean Darvishi. Sean, I started using one of his slides for a while, and after I started using it, I noticed that they don't use them in Word Dyer as much anymore because they always use the one with a gun.
Yes. I was
Remember
going to
the
bring that
gun?
up.
And it would be missing a few puzzle pieces, and they'd ask the veneer panel. They'd say, well, what is this? You don't have all the pieces, but what is this? Everybody go, oh, it's a gun. But then what Sean would do is he would use a puzzle piece, but then what he'd fill in the last puzzle piece, and it was clearly like a toy gun with a little fake orange thing on the
Yeah,
front.
great.
Love that.
And that was good for a while, but I think they got wise to it. So I haven't seen that particular slide from the state in a long time.
Yeah, I
So
think we'll see what's going to be next, but it looks like giraffes are kind of on the menu today.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what does it do? What does a wrongful DWI arrest cost someone, even if it's dismissed? And we talked about some of that, but like, what about like tow fees, bond, license suspension, all that stuff?
I mean, it also costs reputation. Like if you get a DWI in Montgomery County, you're going to be on a Facebook page the
Yeah.
next day. Period. And it
Yeah.
just ruins your reputation.
How many
You don't
times
you
do
don't
those
stand a
clients
chance.
ask you too, like, how do I get that removed? And I'm always like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Public
don't know how.
record.
Yeah, without a time machine, forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard limited, very, very few circumstances where some people have actually been able to get those taken down, but more often than not, I hear they don't. They don't take them down, even if your case got dismissed.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
don't
why
think they do
I
either.
make sure and recommend to my clients every time if you're going to get arrested, smile really well, look really good, show your
Fix your
teeth,
hair.
open eyes. Yeah. People are going to see this.
Yeah, I mean, then work consequences, your reputation. I mean, it sucks.
Not
All
only
right.
that, everyone thinks you did it.
Yep.
Everyone's going to deny it. So, of course, your boss is going to say, okay, yeah.
And by the time you go to trial and win, everyone's already assumed that you were guilty of the DWI. So it doesn't matter if you come back and say, hey, I won my trial.
It was probably some technicality, but
Yeah.
you really were drunk, Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
All right,
sad,
I'm
though,
gonna go
if you're one of these 41 people and you went through it all, and let's say you won your trial or whatever, governmental immunity really prevents you from truly suing, for the cost of what it took, the trauma, There's, I took a case out in Montgomery County a couple weeks ago. Guy's never been in trouble. He got pulled over and arrested for reckless driving, and he spent a few days there, and it was traumatizing for him. And he's scared to drive. He is terrified anytime he sees a cop behind him. He is nervous. In fact, now he's asking his wife to drive him everywhere just because he's terrified. And
Have y'all?
uh, you know,
I'm sorry, Cole. Go ahead.
no, that was it. It's just like, these POS cops, like this guy up in Tennessee, ruin lives, and now people will spend the rest of their life now never trusting police officers ever again, making the situation even worse.
So, in the past in Harris County, I kind of felt like the rule was if you're a first time offender and there was no accident and you're waiting on your blood results or you're under 0.15, that they don't make you put an interlock on the car. But there's at least one judge, I'm not going to name him, but maybe y'all know who I'm talking about. I went in front of him the other day on a new DWI first offense, no accident. It was a breath case, but it was relatively low. I mean, it was a class B. I still made him put an interlock on his car. Have y'all experienced that?
Not lately.
I have not
Not
seen that.
lately, but yeah, that's concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless
Um,
there's some weird facts. No.
Cole, if you're pulled over, are you going to do the field sobriety test?
Absolutely not. And in fact, I get a few extra tickets every now and then because I play the attorney car. They pull my license plate. They see it belongs to my law firm. And I have nothing to say to them, but I will preface everything with respectfully, officer. No, thank you.
Which is
Respectfully,
what you
officer.
should do.
No, thank you. And it respectfully gets you out of everything. And what's the officer going to do? Say I was an a-hole? You know? But no, field sobriety tests are science fiction sobriety tests, and they were made to allow an officer to get probable cause without having evidence.
What about
I'm
you,
gonna
Hugh? Would you
Yeah,
do them?
I would likely. I mean, the thing is, you realize you're going to jail if you don't. But I would respectfully decline. And I think it just let my attorney beat it on the backside at that point.
What about you, Mitch? Would you ever do the field sobriety test if you were pulled over? Even if you were
Well,
completely sober?
yeah. So I would decline them, but I would say that if I was going to do sobriety tests, I think the rule should be that HGN is last. It needs to be walk and turn, then one leg stand, and then if you've got a decision point, then you should do HGN because the second you do HGN, they already have everything they need to arrest you according to them. So I think they should at least build clues off of the physical part tests first before they do HGN. It needs to be left.
And
And
would you tell the officer that on the street?
Yeah, I would probably.
And that's another term that's kind of frustrating too, is decision point. Because it's not pass fail, is what they like to say. It's not pass fail. Then you have to kind of like nail them down and be like, well, all right, it's not pass fail, but what's the decision point?
Uh,
But it's not pass fail. So, Cole, what's the biggest myth? Yeah. What is the biggest myth, Cole, about the .08 number?
the biggest myth is that when you blow or give blood, that number that's produced is the same amount of alcohol in your system at the time you were allegedly driving. And a lot of people think, if I blew a 0.13, a couple hours later when I make it down to the jailhouse, that they got me. But, little did the officers know, I actually had 5 shots before I left Chili's, and they pulled me over in the Chili's parking lot. So, yeah, now I'm shit-faced. But not at the time I was actually driving. I would have made it home just fine. So I think that's the biggest myth, is that a BAC is a captured moment in time when you were driving, and it's not. It's actually much later, and you got to use math and science and assumptions to go back in time. And I think that science itself is really, really crappy because they don't know the individual biomarkers of every person and how they metabolize and all that jazz. So definitely the BAC number does not mean case over by any means.
What about you, Mitch? What do you say? Biggest myth about .08?
I think the biggest myth is that people do have tolerance. And a .08 for somebody who's got tolerance and experience driving at a .08 actually might be just as good a driver as if they were sober. I mean, experience does take effect too in how you're able to drive. So I don't think .08 is the appropriate line that they put in the sand.
And then, of course, y'all know that's the law in Texas. The way that the statute is written is you're guilty of DWI if you lost control of your mental or physical faculties due to the introduction of alcohol, or you're above .08 at the time of operation, at the time of driving, not the time of the test, um, which you have to explain to the jury. But what about you, Hugh? Biggest myth about .08?
Yes, I would say that people automatically think that you're intoxicated at a .08, and as we know with tolerance, and also how do we know that that .08 is the exact number that, that how, I think there's just so many variables in there, with body weight, whether you ate, whether, all kinds of different things. Just, people just want a number and they want to get that number and that's it. There's no deviation between that.
Oh, yeah. All right. One last one, everybody. Starting with you, Cole. One piece of advice that you would give to drivers.
Do not do field sobriety tests.
A good one. Mitch?
I would argue generally don't drive around with weed in the car because the odor of weed is probable cause to search your car.
And then what about you?
I would say make sure you have all your registration stickers, everything, all your lights working on your car, because that just gives cops an easy out. Like, hey, all right, now we got you. Now we're going to get into your car because your front headlight's not working. So just make sure your car's in working order. And yeah, that can solve a lot of problems.
All right. Well, good conversation, fellas. This is exactly why we started this. I know you guys are busy as hell, and I really appreciate you taking time to talk about this, this crazy stuff in Tennessee and all that other stuff. And I think next time we might do one of these after dark, talk about some legal movies and where they're wrong and where they're right, and maybe we'll
Darth Vader was framed. Period in the end. And I got things to say.
We'll have some bourbon. We'll sit down with some bourbon and we'll talk about it. So, all right, guys, fellas, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us on.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Take care. Thanks.
As we wrap this up, here's what I keep coming back to. The Tennessee story isn't really about one trooper. It's about discretion. It's about systems. It's about what happens when judgment calls carry real consequences. 41 arrests, multiple sober drivers, all dismissed. And for most people, the headline is where the thinking stops. But for those of us who practice law, we know something deeper is happening. Arrests are human decisions. Prosecutorial dismissals are human decisions. Field sobriety tests are human interpretations. And when human judgment meets legal authority, there's always risk. Sometimes that risk protects the public. Sometimes it harms the individual. And the line between those two outcomes is thinner than most people realize. That's why conversations like this matter. Not because we're attacking law enforcement, not because we're defending bad behavior, but because transparency strengthens systems and informed citizens make better decisions. Houston on Record is going to live in that space between headlines and reality, between perception and procedure, between business decisions and legal consequences. Some weeks we'll talk about criminal law. Some weeks we'll talk about business leadership in Houston. Some weeks we'll talk about the overlap between the two, because whether you're running a company or defending a case, you're making decisions under uncertainty. You're managing risk. You're protecting reputation. You're operating in systems built by people. And those systems are never perfect. So if you're a lawyer, a business owner, or just someone who wants a clearer understanding of how this city actually works behind the scenes, I'm glad you're here. This is Houston on Record. Same city, real conversations. We'll see you next time.